Brian, I will submit to you that there are 5 basic elements to heavy metal. And I've made it easy for you. I've created an acronym, METAL, M-E-T-A-L. So let's start with M, majestic sound. Brian, metal is big, it's powerful music, it's bombastic, it's larger than life, and maybe most importantly, it takes itself, at least on the surface, seriously. It's not an ironic music style.
I would agree with everything you said except the very last sentence.
The second part is extreme vocals. Whether you have the soaring vocals of the classic metal bands, whether it's the grating voice of death metal, or the operatic extremes of symphonic metal, the music form of metal pushes vocals to the extreme. And most importantly, consistent conservative mid-range singing is never acceptable.
Yeah, I would disagree with that. Continue.
T is for terrible notes. From the Devil's Tritone, from the song Black Sabbath, through virtually everything that has followed, the dark, uncomfortable notes have been essential to metal. Some dissonant element is always present. Brian, I will make the argument the song without any dissonance simply cannot be metal. And of course, pop hooks are anathema. A is for allegiance. Metal bands must pledge allegiance to the Dark Lord below. They are required to embrace and publicly give witness to their acceptance of the metal faith. A band that spurns the metal mantle, they've committed heresy. Brian, I will say, if a band doesn't self-identify as metal, they aren't metal. And then L is for lyrical darkness. The lyrics of metal must embrace the dark side of life. Death, darkness, sadness, bitterness, and loss are essential to metal. You can have expressions of positiveness and joy in metal, but they must be juxtaposed to the evil and darkness.
Yeah, there's just way too much wrong with that for even me to just attack it all together. Let's start with your terrible note, your dissonance.
Yes.
What about songs like Living After Midnight? That's talking about partying, dude. What's dissonant about that?
Wow.
That's from your favorite metal band.
That's a perfect example. Living After Midnight is not a metal song. And Judas Priest themselves have pointed this out. It's a rock and roll song. That's a hard rock song, not a metal song. It's performed by a metal band. Judas Priest are a metal band. But the song Living After Midnight doesn't fit these categories. It is not a heavy metal song.
Okay.
And Judas Priest themselves have made this very point.
So you think it's important what bands say about their own metal?
What a band says about who they are and what they play is incredibly important to me. A band, for instance, who says, no, we're not metal, what are you talking about?
Okay.
I don't think you can just sweep that aside and not take that as meaningful when you look at defining who they are and what they're doing.
Okay, so you and I go to a Priest concert back in the 80s, and we listen to the song Living After Midnight, and the entire stadium, 14,000 people, screaming at the top of their lungs, Living After Midnight, and just because the band says they don't believe that's metal, do you think that most of those 14,000 people would not identify themselves as metal fans? I would be willing to bet that 13,000 of the people in that auditorium would say that is a metal song. Until the day I take my last breath, Living After Midnight is one of the best metal songs of all time. Not because the band defines it as that, but because it has that quality that makes me love it, unite with it, and be loyal with all those people screaming at the top of their lungs.
So let's talk about someone who goes to a rave.
Yeah.
And it's all electronica music.
Right.
And at that rave, they feel united with all the other people at the rave who are, into the dance, and, they just have an association at the level of their very, souls.
And I would say the difference is that all of the people at the Judas Priest concert listening to Living After Midnight would kick the asses of all those people at the rave in the name of metal. It's what you unite in the name of. It's not because you're united. It's what you unite in the name of. And it's the name of metal. I'm going to give you some definition of metal. One of my definitions is loyalty. I think allegiance is a very important part of metal. I think that we can disagree on what the definition of metal is, but we unite in that common cause of metal.